today at tinkertry.com in 4K, the first in world Xeon D-1567 unboxing. I'm pretty excited about the system. It's in a traditional mini tower chassis, so it's like the SYS-5028D. However, it has a Xeon D-1567 instead of the usual 1540 or 1541 in there. So this is 12 cores instead of 8. Alright, now this video is focused on the unboxing and getting ready for your first boot up. You'll see Wired Zone has sold this to me as a bundle. In my case, bundle 2. What that means is it's ready for VMware ESXi, and it comes with some accessories that will make that a little easier. Now when you buy a kit, very much like the Intel NUC or the like, that means, the word kit means, yeah, you've got memory, 64 gig of memory, so it's a bare bones plus memory, you could say, but it's ready to boot an operating system. What's missing are hard drives. So I'm going to go ahead and put a Samsung 850 in there. Got ahead of myself. Not the biggest one in the world. My other server, this is going to be joining in a cluster. It has a lot of my primary storage. A little older drive. I just want to make sure I show you both 2.5-inch drive base, a taller drive and a flatter drive. And here's what you really want to see, and you'll see how ridiculously easy it is to install this Samsung 950 Pro. High humidity conditions means I'm not at all worried about static discharge, so I handle this. Soon the 960 Pro and Evo are coming out. And then finally, lovely, innocuous, simple looking drive, but if you look carefully, you'll see 10 terabytes. So a beautiful HGSD drive. So I think this is probably pretty typical of what people might be doing in their home lab, and that is putting in some 2.5 and a 3.5 and an M.2. So this whole video is going to be done in real time, meaning you have this tool handy, a screwdriver, and probably something like a UPS nearby with a battery, ideally. You've got all you need to get started, to unbox this, to get to the screws you need to get to install all those drives I just showed you. And that's the point of what I want to demonstrate for you on camera in real time as you follow along. I'll also confess, editing 4K videos is kind of a nightmare with my particular hardware that I don't really have enough grunt. So this is going to be, again, unedited so you can follow along in real time. So get your screwdriver. Phillips number 1 is what I've got here. And if you prefer unmagnetized or magnetized, you know, that's up to you. Time to break the seal and show you inside. So camera angle's not going to be perfect here, but I've got some plastic in the way. I can get that off. Again, the tamper-proof seal means an authorized reseller like Wired Zone has burn and tested for 4 hours with RAM, 64 gig, 2 DIMMs, with 2 more slots to go, so you can do 128 total. And in my case, I bought it with 64. So my assembly is going to show you how quick and easy it is to get ready for something like Windows Server 2016 or Red Hat or SUSE, or of course VMware ESXi 6.5 soon. So heck, I can use a screwdriver even to break the seal. So here we go. The server's quite far inside the box. You're not going to be damaging anything doing that. Breaking the sides a little bit. And I'll point out a couple things while we're looking at this side here. If you have a DHCP server and an ability to do DHCP reservations, what you can do is set up a MAC address reservation based lease. So for instance, I'm looking at which MAC address it is. So see how these are sequential. EC, let's see, 500. Oh, when it comes up, we'll actually see which of these is the MAC address for the BMC. I'll need to actually write an article on that because on the E200 and E300 one use, they move around which is the MAC address of the baseboard management controller, IPMI, that you need for initial connection over IBM. In this video, I'm actually going to hook up a local monitor and show you how easy it is to read the IP address that you want to connect it right off the screen. So, here's the server. I don't have a second camera person, so I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to zoom in later when I want to show you individual parts. Okay, what we have here is a burn-in test results sheet. Shows us the amount of RAM, what's on board, and so forth. A nice touch that WiredZone offers, again, as part of this bundle, saying that, yeah, they tested it on this day and time, October 18th. All right, moving right along. Let's get the server out of here. Simple piece of foam. There's the server in plastic. You can see they're able to, resell this with relative ease. All right, there's nothing else left in the box. Box is empty. So now we take off the foam, putting it back in the box, and you'll see the bottom is open. If you unbox it like that, it's rather easy with nice rubber feet. This is the model number listed on the bottom. So, time for the unveil. It's about the 7th such machine I've worked on, but never this particular motherboard. With more cores jammed in the same motherboard and same exact profile, same exact connections, same everything. So I'm very familiar with the system. And I'll point out a couple of things real quickly. I have other videos that cover a lot of this kind of overview stuff. Soon in this video, we'll be hooking up VGA, just temporarily, to show you that you can get the baseboard management controller, the IP address of what you want to connect to with your laptop or desktop first. You don't have to use that ever again. Management port, that's gigabit. 2 USB 3 ports. They are blue on the inside, if you look carefully. There you go. PCI, low profile. Okay, 1 gig, 1 gig. ETH0 on the bottom. ETH0 on the bottom here for 10 gig and 10 gig. All right, that's my overview. Time to get inside. So this is the first use of the screwdriver. It tends to ship where you probably can't use your thumb strength, or you can just at the expense of a little bit of skin. I'm going to go ahead and back those out a little. Again, with the one tool that's needed to do all the work here. Now I'm going to index this video, so you should be able to fast forward or jump just right to the right spot. With like a table of contents I'll build for the video, so it's easy for you to find your way around. Okay. This is a bit of a locking mechanism, meaning, well, of course you can put a lock through it and it won't open at all. But you want to tilt it up a little and put your fingers in the grips on both sides, and then push with your thumbs to release the case. Okay, now that the case is off and backed off about an inch, we're going to lift it right up, straight off. I'm going to set the case aside. Not using that for now. And briefly give you a tour of the insides, but really get right to work with installing the hard drives. So, just pointing out a couple things with this system. We've got a speaker. So that's a nice addition in the bundle. It'll make a nice beep noise when you power it up. And there's a piece of two-sided sticky tape putting it on the chassis metal there. So that speaker, you can remove it if you don't want it. Just pull it right off. It won't be making sounds anymore. There's our 6 SATA cables, nice and thin and slender. 5 is what you get standard with a regular chassis or a non-bundle. And you end up missing this 6th one. And then you have no way to connect this hard drive. So I'm going to show you, this 2.5-inch drive here and here. I'm going to connect both of those and take advantage of that 6 cable that WiredZone adds to this bundle. And M.2 laying down the motherboard, we'll get to that. So time to get started. I'll deal with the 3.5-inch drives around the front last, but so far cosmetically this case looks flawless. I haven't had any build issues with the way things look, and the metal front looks like we're in good shape there too. So no problems. All right, it's probably easiest to get started with the routing of cables. So to be fair, if using wire ties or any of that stuff, I'm going to cover that. But first, I managed to forget to show you what's in the box, in the bag, excuse me. So you can call this a goodie bag. Let me get some distractions out of the way here for you. In the goodie bag, first and foremost, for VMware ESXi or another hypervisor, you might want to use something like a USB flash drive that has a subtle blinking LED in the front in red. It's huge, way bigger than you really need for VMware, so you can use it for other things if you're not planning on putting VMware on there. Power cord. Okay. Now it looks like the USB plugs that some people like are included in the box, so if you never plan to use the front USB ports, for instance, you might be a fan of installing those. I'm going to go ahead and keep those off. Next, we have the part that goes along with the DVD mounting ROM, CD-ROM kit. I'm not using that. Set that aside. We have a key for the front door right there. Setting that aside. Moving right along. Nice little wired zone sticker. Someday a custom sticker on the front here might be nice. Still working on that. One that would fit perfectly. Back to the goodie bag when we're talking about stickers here. Try green sticker and a logo sticker. These stickers may vary, you may end up with a clear sticker, but either way you get the idea to do whatever you want with. The next one's motherboard or chassis component stickers, so 4 of those. 2.5-inch drive screws. And hard drive, or 3.5-inch drive screws, along with some stickers if you want to label the hot swap bays in the front. That's it. Goodie bag's now empty. Alright, so I'm going to get started with the top drive. So, do you remember how I said you don't need any other tools? Well, I was wrong. A wire nipper, scissors not so good, or even, it's going to sound a little weird, a nail clipper, meaning a nice rounded edge. You don't use it for nails, just use it for wire ties. Gives you a way to clip off old wire ties safely. And my new revised parts to have handy list will include the stuff you're now seeing on the left. So before you get started, go ahead and get yourself a clipper of some sort or a wire nipper. Again, toenail clipper is handy because it gives you a nice rounded edge and you don't bleed when you cut off these wire ties. Okay, so now I'm going to get started by showing you that you're not going to be able to mount this drive until you release this white nylon that comes on there from the factory. So if we very carefully go from the top, just get right through it with absolutely no damage to the silver cable and pull that out and discard it. That was easy, so I freed up the first one. We also need to free up these power cables that are basically shipped with this nylon for well, organization purposes, but it's really too tight to reach the back of the drive with any kind of ease. So again, same kind of thing. Going through with a nail clipper is trivially easy and you're not damaging at all or marring the cables in any way. And now that is tossed in the garbage as well. Next, side. Can we leave this one in place? Sure. So there's a wire tie that Wired Zone nicely did for you here, and it's black, so you can see that's theirs. And a second one here, fine. We'll see how that works out. I'm going to put the top drive in first. So I put the top drive in. You've got 2 screws here. It's that simple. We'll talk about wire routing in a moment. It's not hard, but if you haven't done it before, you haven't seen how it can reach everything that you need, well, it might be easier to watch, me do it once. So now we've got this that just slides right off, right? Simple. Okay. So I need to grab a drive. All right, and then kind of dry fit it, meaning make sure you got it oriented correctly, SATA connectors on the back, line up the holes, and get started by grabbing the 2.5-inch screw bag. So lining these up so you don't cross thread or strip anything is not difficult at all. I'll get a chair here. So once we have these in, these 4 screws, I'm going to go ahead and route the cable in front of you so you can see exactly how that's done. Again, the idea here is you're following along and doing the same operations with your brand new server. If you want a concise or faster video, I have other ones that show different segments, such as replacing your CMOS, or replacing your battery because your CMOS went weird, or your CR2032 battery, or adding and removing DIMMs, or adding and removing PCI cards. I have all that covered in a series of videos already published. All right. Now, it does appear that I haven't tightened that very well. And I'll just point out that these 2 screws are the ones that held down through the top, right? These are the ones I opened in the pouch. Let me finish tightening these here. Depending upon what hard drive or SSD you have, you may need to think about screw length or use screws that come with your drive, for instance. But these fit fine. All right. So, I'm looking for the tabs, slide it in, I'm good. Now, power. So I'm taking this and showing you that you want to stretch it out and get that first cable drop attached. Okay, looking at the L shape, matching it with the orientation of the back of the drive. Excuse me, the rubber feet, it makes a funny noise. I've now shown that the cable length is sufficient. So I'm confident in what I've done. The second one gets routed through the side and then barely reaches there. So you have to route it through this hole, which is a little strange, and then attach it to the back of that second drive. All right, you'll see that in a moment. If you have a lightly magnetized tip in your screwdriver, it can kind of help for these screws that are set back in the bit of a channel here. Kind of easy to drop. Of course, you want to be aware of magnetism if you're going near a spinning drive, right? All right. That's done. So notice we've routed the SATA cable through there. That was already routed through there. But I've also routed the power cable through that hole near the front. I'm going to put SATA underneath, connect it, and we're done up top. Okay. These edges are a little sharp. It's not ideal to be going across an edge like that. Also not really a big deal unless you're moving things around a whole lot. All right, now how do you get this plate out to attach a drive to it? Well, it's not hard. It's just strangely kind of up on top. So take those 2 screws out. These are countersunk, so they're a little different. Helps you not be confused by which screw goes where. So that's now free to move. Goes like that, meaning connectors for the SSD in the back. And now it's time to put those screws in. So I'm thinking Supermicro, this has happened occasionally where they come up short a screw or 2, and it looks like I only have 3 screws here to attach. So that's unfortunate. They likely just shipped with less screws. I wouldn't blame Wired Zone on that because Wired Zone didn't touch the 2.5-inch screws or the kit. So just pointing that out. A little hard to hide the fact that I'm short one screw. Is that going to matter for an SSD like this? No. But I'll still kind of add it to my quality reports I give to Supermicro on occasion for any assembly issues I noticed. And you just saw one. Alright. Is that easy? I'm going to go ahead and take care of fastening that. Back to the top. Lines up with the channel. And screw that right back down. So, you'll see that what I was saying about assembly being pretty straightforward is true. You don't need to be all that handy or proficient with, you know, fancier techniques like thermal paste and putting on CPU fans or heat spreaders or brackets or any of that. This is just basic drive installation techniques. Not difficult at all. Okay, now the second drive we just added needs some signal cabling. Alright, making sure the SATA signal cable is lined up at the back of the SSD. Plug it into the SSD, and now power. This is the one that looks like it'd be too darn short to reach, but nope, it reaches. It's that easy. So, pretty clean look, right? SATA cable's tight. You put, well, it fits. Basically everything works, and there's no additional stress down here. You're done. There's really no need for cable dressing or any wire ties. All I showed you is a wire nipper to pop off ties. If you wanted to do some more cable ties, I suppose you could, but again, really not necessary at this point. So we're done with that stuff. It would be a little sloppy though to leave this stuff kind of swinging in the wind, right? So we do have a spot there to tie back down. So I'm going to do that. Because I'm not installing a DVD-ROM, I'm not using any of these other connectors. I'm really just trying to get that stuff out of the way so when I'm taking the lid on and off someday, there is nothing of any consequence touching the lid or getting pinched. Really don't need to do that tight. I'm just trying to, again, get it tight enough so they're out of the way. And now they're well below the surface of the bottom surface of the inside of the case cover. So I'm going to snip this off. Alright, that goes in the garbage can too. So do I really need this other wire tie? Nah, I don't. Okay. Next, 2.5-inch. Let's go around the front. And I'll mention these releases. The bottom one can be a little stickier than the others because it's actually touching a fan shroud right here. Plastic shroud is ducting to the fan, and I just noticed something. They put a taller heatsink on here, which is interesting. So the motherboard that Supermicro went with came with a taller CPU heatsink, which is very interesting, and they still put a fan on top of it. So it's meant for passive cooling in like a 1U case, and I have some of those I could show you later maybe. But this is the different part number. SNK C0092A4L. And this is 101-03416. So that's kind of awesome. This thing might cool even better. Now remember, it's 12 core instead of 8. And I don't really see any downside to more passive cooling, so that may be less RPM or fan noise. And that's just kind of awesome. It'll probably have the same decibel output, although I'm seeing a different brand of fan on there too. Alright, well, if you've never owned a previous system, you don't really care about that, but it is interesting to me that they've gone with a different fan on the CPU there as well, compared to the traditional system. Alright, moving along. Oh, and here's the tabs for the fan shroud. We can pull it out if you wanted. So back to what I was showing you. 2.5-inch drives, obviously, forward in the front. After I get this whole thing booted, what I might do is tack in the end kind of a options video where you don't have to use 3.5-inch drives. You can actually buy brackets that adapt down to 2.5. So you could actually put 4 more SSDs up front here. All right. After I get this 3.5-inch drive installed, I'm going to do the M.2. So if you're not interested in 2.5, you could speed this up. But basically, it comes with a pin here and a screw here. Screw in the back, just a pin in the front. So you have only 2 screws to remove before you're ready to install your 3.5-inch drive in that spot. These are hot swap caddies. They are not fancy. They're not particularly beefy or heavy metal or anything. Just plastic stuff here. Frankly, I don't hot swap that often in my home lab. Once the drive is mounted, it tends to sit there. So you just pop those front things out. This is now a spacer that really doesn't do much for you. But the screw we're about to reuse. Now this screw seems to have hit the bracket and is not, there we go, popped out for me. Now it's popped out. Now remember, we've got a baggie full of hard drive screws. So now is a good time to grab 2 more. And you know what? My huge drive is going to go in the bottom drive bay. So what we could do, optionally, would be to put that sticker right on there. You can go ahead and do that. You can put it in the middle, you can put it towards the left. Somehow, I don't know, thinking towards the left, why not? Okay, touch it with my thumb, make sure it's lined straight up. Oops, off camera, sorry about that. And either way, it's too short for the slot, so it's a little weird that it does that, but it's all right. Okay, trying to keep this video moving along. Ready to grab about 10 terabyte behemoth, excuse me. Obviously, we want the SATA connectors to the back. So lay it down. The holes should line up nicely. And actually, yeah, they're lining up pretty well, not perfectly. So, yep, resting it on the surface is not working all that well. You know what? I got zoom for you. Let the camera roll. And now I have a 2x lens. There we go. So we want to get the hole lined up, get the screw in, and get gravity on my side and get the screw sort of oriented correctly. All right, and let's see if I can get that going, and it went in with ease. I didn't tighten it all the way yet. Next one, again, the last thing we want to do would be to strip anything on either the threads in the 10 terabyte drive or the screws themselves, so it should go in very easily if you've got things lined up nicely. That was not hard at all. Let's see if this one I can just lay down on the surface and get that screw in there. All right, gotta pay attention to what I'm doing here. There we go. There's a bit of flex in the caddy, as I mentioned. It's just plastic. So obviously you want to get the screw hole lined up or reasonably close to it before you dream of turning the screw head. So I did not tighten them, just gently. All right, now I'm ready to tighten them all the way. 1, 2, someone's probably freaking out watching me with magnet. I have no date on this drive yet, but still, you don't want a magnetic tip in your drive. This is hardly magnetized very much. Super weak. 10 terabyte drive now goes in the system. Pop the lever. And there we go. So we're done there. Go back to the regular lens. What's next? Well, like I promised, M.2. I think this would be a great time to zoom in again for you. All right, M.2 is going to lay down right here. And there's just one screw right there to remove. This screwdriver just barely fits. So if we put it in right there, and we can guide it down if our finger's a little unsteady. There, it fits right to the top. Now I can give you the better zoom again, and simply back off that screw. Okay, looks like the post was nice and tight on the motherboard, and that's a good thing. Alright, I'm going to set that screw aside. Get our lovely Samsung 950, and now install it. Now, I have other videos that show this even brighter. I'm going to grab something here. Alright, I was looking for a extra flashlight or something laying around. And I got one. Here we go. Oh, that device is dead. Alright, I'm going to have to go with the lighting I've got here. If I turn this, there we go. I think you have dramatically better lighting there. So you want to obviously line this up. It's only at like a 30-degree angle. A little awkward to get your fingers in there if they're on the bigger side, but not a big deal. There you go. So there's pretty much zero insertion force at that angle, and it's just kind of hanging there. That's how you install this. Get the screw back down through the top and get that set down. So doing this without getting in the way of the camera, that's going to be a challenge. Kind of need to think about how I'm going to do this. All right. Trying to not stick my arm right in front of the lens. Got that screw in there. And down, I'm going to need to put the M.2 down on the motherboard and then lower the screw into the hole. And then gently turn it until it's oriented straight in, without any stripping or cross threading. That's it. M.2 now fastened. No need to use excessive force or anything. So now you can see the M.2 in place. All right. Now this time, if you have a PCI low profile card, you could put it in there if you wanted to. So we're done with the innards. Go back to wide angle lens. Let's put the chassis cover back on. It's got my fingerprints on the top. Okay, you heard it kind of click. That's this clicking. Don't really need to put these on, but you can. And that's the conclusion of the assembly. So I'm about to grab a monitor, hook up a keyboard, and show you that. We're going to use the monitor just to get the IP address off of there. All right, so now I'm bending over a little bit to see the hole, see if that's lined up. I'm just struggling slightly with threading that one. There we go. Next, let's bring this to the edge of the camera view. I guess that'll do. All right. And I'll point a couple things out. The network. It'd be good to have a DHCP server granting it a lease. And I want you to see that. So, the simplest possible network I can come up with is right here. So I've got a router and a 8 1 gig port and 2 10 gig port switch. So small and light, simple wiring that'll be pretty easy to follow on camera what's happening here. So you're going to go at 10 gig and the 1 10 gig. Don't really need that right now, just for initial bring up. And next, 1 gig. That's for like VMs and so forth, traffic. And then finally, management. So there we go. 3 cables all set, ready for full speed network traffic. Now this power cord is kind of in your way visually here. Let's bring it around the other side and get the router out. Okay, so the lights just flickered on the back. That's cool. I have videos, by the way, detailing the ASUS product there on top. So this is not intended to highlight that. This is a sub $100 edge router. ETH0 is the WAN port. So I do need to grab the network that is going to my cable modem and jack that in. So I'll have actual internet, not just a local network. All right, and then just a little plug. Sorry for the pun. That cord is too short. Well, I've got a PFC LCD series cyber power off to the side here. Let me move the camera a little bit. There you go. So this is what I'm hooking up, conditioned power to this. All right, and we can actually run USB from here over to PFC LCD to do monitoring and graceful shutdown. That's an optional thing. Again, my focus is just bringing up the server. So it's time to do exactly that. Actually, I should just leave this on camera so that you can sort of see the watts. There we go. A little dim. All right, so now the display is on 60 watts. So 60 watts are in use right now by other stuff like the lights and the camera I'm using and all that. All right. Is there anything else I'm missing? Well, it's time to use the power cord from the goodie bag. So I'm going to use the Supermicro original power cord. Plug it into the condition side of the UPS. And there it is, the very first time I've ever turned this system on. So I'm going to unplug it because the first boot's a little bit special. When you finish, it takes about a minute to boot. The boot, it does a reconfigure based on how much RAM it finds and stuff. Now this machine's already been burned and tested. But if you have a machine that's never booted before and you have 120 gig of RAM or whatever, new machine, it's going to beep as it like discovers what hardware's on there and then does a reboot. All right. Good news. Even better than plugging in there. I'm going to plug it in here so you can much more clearly right on this LCD see just what this one system is using in watts. All right. The more clear the video, the better. Let's see if we can route the power cable kind of out of the way. Okay, I did it again. I'm a little ahead of myself booting. Need a monitor to show you the baseboard management controller coming up. And we need a way for you to see that. So I'm going to swing this stuff around. Bring the monitor a bit closer here. And I just tilt the camera up. Okay, that'll help. That's a little better. Exposure and stuff's gonna be tough, but there we go. You can see the watts. Now I need VGA connected. So we're almost done here. Thanks for your patience. You're probably doing the same in your home lab. Or you're setting up a DHCP reservation, whatever you prefer. Okay, there's VGA, really thick cable. Now I'm ready to power up. There we go, Supermicro bias showing. See if we can get that full frame here without missing the key stuff. all we really need to see is the bottom right corner, the IP address. So this router should be booted. It is. It's got blinking lights. And it should grant a lease to this new device it's never seen on the network before. After I get this IP address, let me set my accessories aside, I'll be ready for the next steps. Bring the goodie bag stuff away while we wait. Should hear a beep pretty soon. Okay, and there's the IPMI address. And it did not work. So that means I got something unplugged here. Let's see, the 10 gig switch is on. There it is. Just took a little bit. 177. I can memorize that. That's all we need. Now, because it is the first boot, I'm going to just let it run. See what happens. There we go. All right, off camera. Oh, I got Windows on there. All right. So I had an operating system on there. But there was no second reboot. The machine had already knew what it was doing with its memory, and it started coming up. Now what I really want to do is configure the BIOS properly. That'd be next. Notice it got much quieter once the power on test was done. And I'm ready to get the monitor out of the way and show you a laptop to finish this up. And my goal here is to kick off any ESXi install, ideally. Once I untangle all this mess. So, new laptop attached. I'll be able to get local. Whoa, sorry about that. I bumped the tripod. I'll be able to get you a nice view of what it looks like to first bring up this machine and configure the BIOS. So, I suppose your next tool here, well, the same tool. If we start the tear here where it shows the scissor cut line, I should be able to do the rest by hand. Let's try that out. And that was rather straightforward. So I tend to put my VMware on the front rather than tying up a port in the back. Looks good, and the door still closes even with that flash drive. That's why I picked a nice short drive to bundle with the system. And I actually provide 2 wired Zona, and they provide it to you in the bundle. All right, and notice we got down to 55 watts as the system started idling. So this part of the video, we're briefly jumping into initial BIOS config, and that will conclude all the physical stuff for the Bundle 1. Follow on at the end, tacked on the end, will be a little bit of fun with options. Alright, so this machine does not have a built-in network card, so it's got a USB adapter. Okay, now I got this laptop getting a lease from the local network, and I got the brightness cranked up for you. Alright, and 2x lens. So far it's actually working. I think I'm pulling off this whole video in one giant cut. Alright, hopefully that's going to be close enough for you to see what's going on. Barely. Let's get that better. Alright, so what am I doing with the BIOS? Well, if you're not familiar with IKVM, you can do everything through it. Again, you don't need local VGA because it's such a versatile platform as far as what you can do with the local, with the network attached keyboard, video, mouse, console. It's Java based for now, but they're going HTML5. So All right. Let's see how that looks. Did autofocus work? Yep. Bit of a reflection. Yep, we'll live with it. All right. Let's start with, okay, the router is working, so that's good. My network is up, my laptop's attached to the network. All good signs. Cool. Now I'm going to fire up Chrome. I'm going to point to 10.10.1.177. When I have a bunch of machines again, I do DHCP reservations, so I have to memorize IP addresses. Okay, that worked. It's warning me about security. I bypass that. And type in admin, all uppercase initially. Okay. Now it's a little silly to show. I'm not planning on showing you a lot here. I can record, Camtasia video of desktop setting. I have many like that. I'm just showing you that it's with Java installed, or you can do HTML remote control with later BIOSes. Let's have a look here. We're on BIOS firmware revision 3.26 for the IPMI and BIOS level 1.1c. So Wired Zone already flashed the BIOS to October 3rd. Cool. All right. I'm going to open up the Java console, and you're about to see the system. Why? Because I want to show you BIOS settings. So it's a little clumsy. HTML5 will be much slicker. That's coming on the next firmware update that I've already previewed and used for the IPMI setting. All right, so Windows happened to be on there, and there we go. We had a VM. It's running, sorry, not a VM, a physical machine, Windows, and it's burning 58 watts. But that's not what I'm trying to show you. I really want to get into the BIOS settings and crank up the quality so you can see them as clearly as possible. Does it let me turn off my camera LED? No, it doesn't. All right. So when we look at the BIOS here, and you can see 177 at the bottom, you're basically looking at the same thing we saw before. And while that's booting up, I'm going to go ahead and, oh, look at that, network traffic showing in the router in the back. Love that. All right. We're getting ready for the boot, and we want to get in the BIOS. That means hitting the delete key. So I'm trying to get to my own article here. There we go. Hit the delete key. So I got mouse into that window, clicked on it to give it focus, hit the delete key, and now I see if I hit it on time. It's handy to have a speaker because it got me got my attention. So I missed the delete key. All right, so while that's coming up a second time, I recycle to the power control. I'm bringing up my own article here that shows all the recommended BIOS settings. All right, so yes, that would be your very next step. The next thing to jump to. There's not too much point in me trying to show you here, and the exposure's terrible. There we go, that's better. I'll just keep going. It only takes a minute to set. I'm only seconds away from getting it booted. So hopefully this video will be close enough for you to actually set the BIOS based on these screens. But again, it's really more important to just bring up the article. Delete, delete, delete. Entering setup. We got it. I got it. All right. Looks like the memory is recognized. 65536. All that's looking good. As far as view, though, it's going to be a little hard for you to see. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it probably. Well, it's on auto resize window, so let me just scale this. Okay, now it's on 1-to-1 pixel mapping. Well, it's going to be as clear as it gets, probably like that. Moving right along, sorry about that. Right arrow, just following along with my own directions. There's also a video, by the way, if you're more a visual person and you want to see a looping video. just play this, and in real time you can follow along with it from boot all the way to every single menu setting that I'm about to show you. But frankly, having done it many times, following along with the words is going to be just fine. So the first step is restore optimize defaults. And save changes and reset. Why? Because the way it enumerates or finds SATA drives, ooh, that got quieter. All right, the way it finds SATA drives, well, that can be affected. After a reboot, things might look a little different in the BIOS. So I've kind of gotten the habit of resetting defaults and going back to optimized. Now, I'm showing you, oh boy, I forgot to point this out. I'm showing you this because I don't know if you bought a bundle 2. All right. So this video is focused on if you bought a bundle 2, you wouldn't need to follow this procedure I'm going through to set up the BIOS. All right. But if you're doing this at some later time, or if you upgrade your BIOS gets reset to factory defaults anyway. That's the way Supermicro does it. A bit annoying. So again, if you bought a bundle 2 or bundle 1 or bundle 3 in EU from Supermicro, you're good to go. Sorry, if you bought it through Wired Zone, you're good to go. As is, you already have UEFI set in your BIOS and some other annoying tendencies of Supermicro BIOS turned off. I just got an idea. Let me go to yoga mode here, bend that back, and get you even closer to the screen for the clearest possible picture that you can read. All right. That's not going to work because I have no up and down arrow keys. There we go. Right arrow, down arrow, enter, boot feature. Numlock off, so that drives me nuts when that's on. You're typing a password somewhere else and it pops up. I like pushing and holding the power button to deliberately turn things off. Just a second. The video window somehow went to crummy, blurry. It's better. Okay. And then finally, restore power. I'm actually gonna go with power on in this case. For the most part, like after an ice storm, my graceful shutdown for my CyberPower UPS that tells ESXi to shut down, I usually leave it on shut off. But this one's actually traveling with me to Orlando in a week for a demo. I'm gonna want it to power on as soon as I plug it in. All right, I'm done with that. I'm just following along with my own script. That wasn't hard. Go over to SATA here, and wherever there's a drive, if it's an SSD type, change it. Not really important, but here's a Corsair, change it to solid state type. Same thing with the Samsung SSD, change it to solid state. Notice you don't see the M.2 drive in there. That's on the motherboard, it's PCI based, it's not SATA. I'm not going to show in this menu, that's normal. Hit escape, right arrow my way over to boot, and change it right to UEFI. And then hit F4 and exit. Save configuration and exit. Okay, I'm almost done. Mount virtual media. So if you're doing Windows or VMware at this point, you want to browse your way to wherever you have your ISO files and mount one of them. Okay, doesn't even look like I have VMware handy, but I got Windows 10, say, or PowerQuest or whatever you got. Click on plugin, okay. And then here in the BIOS boot order, just for this boot, I'm going to want to configure it for booting from the CD-ROM or A10 branded CD-ROM. It's a over-the-network CD-ROM. Okay, and that'll kick off my installer. So whatever ISO you're trying to mount for whatever operating system you're installing, you don't need to make fancy boot media. You don't even need to make it for VMware. You just go over the network like this. But you do want to hit F11. So I hit F11 to specify an alternate boot sequence for this boot only. And I'm not sure I'd given that window mouse focus, so I may have blown that opportunity to get into the alternate boot menu. Oh, I got in. Cool. A10 virtual CD-ROM media. Hit enter. Hit spacebar, and now a Windows install begins. more typically you're going to be doing Windows Server, right? This is a server, and its BIOS is tuned to be a server. S3 sleep states are not what you would expect. So it's really meant to be an always-on machine. I'll just point that out. All right. Now, remember, I told you that at this point in the video, I'm going to show you some optional stuff. So why not just keep on rolling this camera? Again, strictly for people that want to try seeing some options or accessories that could be of interest, particularly for the PCI slot on this motherboard, or adding a second M.2 drive. All right, and there comes the Windows install. And there you go. Now I'm going to just shut down and unmount the ISO. By the way, if you're booting from VMware and it's the only boot target, well, VMware will boot. You may want to go in the BIOS and specify USB only if you never wanted to boot off a hard drive. Just pointing that out. So I clicked on plug out, I've ejected the ISO. It's all done. Shut down. Move this laptop out of the way. And show you the other stuff now. Okay, it looks like my battery got low. That's weird considering I'm plugged in. Alright, not sure why that might have happened. Sorry, just a second. Just making sure this camera will keep rolling. Alright, it's definitely plugged in now. So, accessories or options. I'm going to go back wide angle. Unplug power. And I'll just point out, like many of these, if you get the tab in the wrong order, it can be a little tricky. But it's so soft you can actually put, chug right through it and still release the catch. So, PCI slot, that's the first thing I want to show you. There are options. Starting with, I'm forgetting the actual brand, this lovely looking card. Come on, focus, focus, focus. There we go. Black is a tricky color. Now, the nice thing is 2280, but 22110 as well. You can go with full length NVMe drives on that, which is very nice. Here's the M.2 connector. And here's a piece of black tape I put over the very bright, obnoxious blue LED that shows activity when it's booted. Why am I showing you this? Well, a couple nice things about it. Come on, focus, focus. There we go, and 2x. The cool thing is, if you take the Samsung 950 out, you put it in here, the stickers now right sit up, and it looks really kind of cool at a trade show or whatever. I'll point out that if you're installing PCI devices like that, back out this screw just a little bit, and now it makes it very easy to put that device in. Let's see if I have a M.2 drive line over here. I do. Okay, this is just a 128 gig Samsung, but you know what? It looks so much better with this black Samsung. I'm sorry. And I'll take a picture later too to go with this video. So I'm just going to take out the existing Samsung. Cool thing is, Windows, VMware, Linux, they don't even know you've done this. Adding it to a $20 or so external card, it just doesn't care. And it'll still boot from it as well if you have a UEFI mode turned on and you're booting from it. So it's really pretty slick to use. Okay. That product does need a smaller screwdriver. So now we're down to number 0. Oh boy, I was off camera. Sorry about that. So I release the screw, pH 0, get that back in. Remember I said to back off the screw in the back? The reason for that is when you take out the PCI card with the PH1 Phillips, can you see me on camera doing that? Not sure. There we go. Now you can see it. Yep. Move that back plate. Remove that and insert. So, what do you do with these cables? I will say you probably want to go up and over with this one. Just move it a little, right? No big deal. That's it. It's very easy. Clears fairly easily. But again, you just want to get this thicker cable behind it out of the way. And now you're ready to sink that into the slot. Making sure you're first lined up on the back plate. There we go. That's it. Looks great, doesn't it? All right, now I'm ready to put that screw back down. I'll mention this bracket actually comes with a black screw if you don't want to use the original chassis screw. I prefer to use the original chassis screw. And then before you forget, put this in your goodie bag so you don't lose it when you need it at some later date. So there you go, that's accessory number 1 I wanted to show you. Look how nice that looks. If you want 2 Samsungs or a 950 and a 960, this is your chance to do that. Let me see if I can get that on camera and hold it still. Come on, focus. All right, I'm on 2x, probably not a brilliant idea. Let me go to 1x. Okay. Accessory number 2. A little more mundane. It's the drive caddy I was telling you about. So remember I said 3.5 inch hot swap base? Well, you got this way to put an upside down SSD in there. And basically to install it, you just install 4 screws. And now, instead of this, you can have one of these. Generally, you're going to put lighter drives on top, right? So that's my 2.5 inch. Oh, okay. All right, those screws are not the original ones, so it's a little bit scrapey. You can see they're dark. They came with the OCZ. Apparently, I never tested this after mounting it. So you'll want to use proper HDD screws, but if it's an SSD, you want to use small recessed screws. So I'll just point that out. I want to prove it by removing these and showing how it smoothly goes in with those rails not being impinged like they were on camera, embarrassing me. That's what happens when you do a live video. I did not hurt anything. I wasn't pushing very hard at all. All right, so now the screws are released. They're off the side. And let's see this thing go in. Of course, helps if I'm right side up, right? Notice the handle orientation. So the drive itself is upside down. There, it slides right down. So no more impingement. Okay. What else did I want to show you? Something rather mundane, but practical. If you start attaching things like that CyberPower PFC LCD UPS I was talking about, that means you got USB here. And you've got an Ethernet cable there. So it gets a little tight to try to use these USB slots. So what you can do is an extender. It's USB 3. Remember, that's a USB 3 slot. You can put 2 of those in, so now it's super easy to put, you know, bootable media or whatever, something you're doing in a home lab. A lot easier than reaching your fingers in underneath this RJ45 connector. There we go, that's a better view. Okay. Sorry, super mundane. I'm looking into sticker ideas for the back. That'd be really nice to have these labeled 1 gig and 10 gig. But again, not a big deal to memorize. And now we got a black back plate. And look what I forgot to put this screw back in. So when you're done messing with the PCI slot, you want to put that back in. To remove the motherboard, by the way, it's just 4 screws, slide it out, and remove the connectors, obviously, to allow it to slide out. Okay, were there any other accessories to show? Yes, there was. And that is a different lid. So, you don't like the fingerprinty look of kind of matte black paint? You'll see, you get some fingerprints going and some dust. All right, back to wide angle. This is the one I just unboxed, right? It gets a little messy looking. So what I've done here is experimented with this. I think it looks pretty good, and it hides a lot of the problems. I also experimented with Dynamat, which really didn't do much for sound absorption, so you can ignore that, but really what I'm trying to highlight is that. What is it? This stuff. I'll link to it in the description of the video. It's just vinyl and adhesive. You peel it back off and you stick it on and wrap it around the edges, cutting it with scissors at the corner. No big deal. All right. It also has a little problem because it covers up sort of that thumb grip area. So I haven't really worked out how I should deal with that or cut it to make it handle that more elegantly. But put that on. You'll get the idea that it looks decent. It's not perfect. There's other, colors and things you could do, of course, too. Be good if you could see it. All right, looks like I messed up. I did not get that seated on there right. So when you do put Dynamat on the inside, it makes it a little hard to get the cover on and off properly. You can see I obviously botched it right there in front of you on camera. So gotta make sure the little clippies are under where they're supposed to be. It'd be a whole lot easier to just turn this around and do it again. So back to there. Move the camera a little. Try that again. Slide it back. Make sure both sides are in. And now slide it back forward. So that would be the disadvantage to vinyl or putting Dynamat inside, which is really kind of dumb. Again, that was me experimenting with an extra chassis and cover that I had. All right. Well, I think spent a fair amount of time here already. Well, there we go. The exposure was way blown out. You got to see some other network goodies too there as part of the show. So hopefully you found this video helpful. Go ahead and take some stuff away here. And go ahead and put those back on. But closing out this video to remind you to check out the other videos in the YouTube channel here for Tinker Try. There's a whole lot about VMware, of course, rather common way to get the most bang for your buck in a home lab, where you can run a whole lot of VMs on a machine with 12 cores and 128 gig of RAM. So don't forget to check those articles out and to thumbs up the video or subscribe and check out the order page. So that's tinkertry.com/superservers. tinkertry.com/superservers. And I've done it again. Got that front clip up. So this is mostly Dynamat. It's not so much from using vinyl on there that I'm having issues getting the cover on. So I would say for most people, don't do the Dynamat because it kind of makes things tricky on the rails, and just go with the factory cover. If you're going to do anything, you can put that vinyl on pretty easily. So now, factory cover, I don't really have to do anything special with my fingers. It's all lined up at the front. It's going to go right on and be lined up at all the edges. So there you have it. Can't wait to join this to my other cluster node. That'll be my next things to do. So thanks again for watching and for visiting tinkertry.com.